All right, so like I said in class, you are going to finish taking notes over how to multiply and factor. So these are problems that you saw on, or these are problems like the ones you saw on your notes before. So what I want you to do is take this time to first multiply the first set and then factor out the second set. And this is where you're going to use the Edpuzzle, and this is where it's going to stop you and ask you a question. You have to fill in the answers. So again, just a reminder, this is a distribution problem. So when I distribute, I'll get 4x plus 2. And if I look down here for the GCF problem, 4x and 2, well, I know that they have 2 in common. So if I divide 2 out, I'm left with 2x. If I divide 2 out, I'm left with 1. So I have 2 parentheses 2x plus 1. So for the Edpuzzle, I want you to do the same thing, but with the 5 parentheses x squared plus 2x minus 5 and the other problem below it. All right, now we're going to move on to the new set of multiplying and factoring. There's 2 different methods you can use to FOIL, or to multiply. You can either use FOIL or the box method. Remember, when you multiply, you're going to multiply the coefficients, the numbers, but you add the exponents. So the way you do FOIL is you're just going to distribute the first term to everything in the second box. So that's 6x plus 14x, 6x squared, because 1x and 1x is x squared. And then you're going to take the second number and do the same thing. So negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x, and negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. So when I go to combine like terms, I have 6x squared, 17x and negative 3x will give me 14x, and then I bring down the negative 7. So that is how you use FOIL to multiply 2 expressions together. Now you can come over here and try box. So FOIL and box is both for multiplying, and you could use whichever method you prefer. So since I have 2 terms in both of my expressions, I'm going to make a 2 by 2 box. And then I'm going to take each side and line it up with one of the expressions. So on the top, I'm putting the x minus 5, and on the side, I'm putting the x plus 5. So 1x times 1x, so 1 times 1 is 1, but then if I have my exponents, I add them up to get x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x, 5 times x is 5x, and 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. So now that you have the box filled in, remember this kind of looks like your Punnett square that you use in biology. You're going to look here and you're going to see that you have like terms. So I'm going to combine my like terms and then just write out my answer. So I have x squared. When I combine 5x and negative 5x, those actually cancel out in this problem. And then I bring down the negative 25. So sometimes when you combine like terms, they'll cancel out. All right, over here I put a reminder in what the star looks like. You put a times c on top, b on the bottom, and a on the 2 sides. So this is the first problem where we're actually going to use that. So remember, you always need to look for your GCF first. 1x squared, negative 5x, and 6, they have absolutely nothing in common. So I don't have a GCF, so I can go straight into labeling a, b, and c. So a is the coefficient with x squared, b is the coefficient with x, and c is your constant. So when I go to make the star, I put a times c on top, b on bottom, and a on the 2 sides. All right, so here's the trickiest part. You need to find 2 numbers that multiply to the top but add to the bottom. If you can't figure out the 2 numbers right away, the best way to figure this out is on the side here, I'm going to list off anything that multiplies to the number on top. So I have 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. 1 and 6 could add to negative 5, but they couldn't. For it to multiply to positive 6, they would have to either both be negative and both be positive. So that could not add up to negative 5. However, if I do negative 2 and negative 3, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6, and negative 2 plus negative 3 is negative 5. So you just kind of have to guess and check and work through it and see what you need to do. All right, here's the last new part. So now that I have this side of my star, I have 1 over negative 2 and 1 over negative 3. So you want to see if those can reduce. I can't simplify or reduce 1 over negative 2 down. So that is the simplified form. And I can't reduce 1 over negative 3. So when I go to write my factors, the top number goes in front of x, and the bottom number is what you add or subtract to x. So I have 1x minus 2 and 1x minus 3, and that's your final answer. So now I give you the two expressions that you multiply in to get x squared minus 5x plus 6. All right, so we're going to do two more together. I have 3x squared minus 15x plus 18. So again, I'm going to look for greatest common factor first. In all three of these numbers, I know that 3 can divide them out. So I have 3 and x squared. This will give me 3 and negative 5x, and that's 3 and 6. So I take out my greatest common factor of 3 to leave me with x squared minus 5x plus 6. And from here, I label a, b, and c. So again, a is your coefficient with x squared, b is your coefficient with x, and c is your constant. Hopefully you should notice that this problem is super familiar. 6 goes on top, negative 5 on the bottom, and 1 on the sides. These are the same three numbers we were working with last problem. So I already know that negative 2 times negative 3 multiplies to 6, but adds to negative 5. So the difference here, again, the sides won't simplify, is when I go to write my factors, I have to remember to bring the greatest common factor down. So I'm going to have 3, and then I'm going to do the x minus 2 and x minus 3. Sorry, ignore that line there. So the difference here is I have the GCF in front of everything else. Okay, for the second problem, again, I look at it and I have negative x squared minus x plus 2. Because I'm dealing with just 1s and 2s, there doesn't look like there's really a GCF. However, we talked about in the last set of notes, you never want your first term to be negative. So I actually do have a GCF here, and I'm going to divide out a negative 1 from all of these terms. So that'll leave me with x squared. This will leave me with positive x, and that becomes negative 2. So I have negative 1 parentheses x squared plus x minus 2. So this changes the a, b, and c, because now I have a is 1, b is 1, but c is negative 2. So I'll draw on the star. A times c goes on top, and b on bottom. So I need to find two numbers that will multiply to negative 2, but add to positive 1. So if you think here, the only things that multiply to 2 are 1 and 2. Well, to multiply to a negative 2, I know one of my two numbers has to be negative. And then I add to a positive 1, so my bigger number is positive, and the smaller number is negative. And again, 1 over 2 won't simplify down, and neither will 1 over negative 1. So when I go to write my answer, I have my greatest common factor of negative 1 out front, and then remember I do the top number in front of x, the bottom number behind, and then the top number in front of x, the bottom number behind. So this here, let me squeeze it in there, is my final answer on factoring that quadratic. All right, so this is where I want you guys to take a minute to pause, fill out both of these problems, and then again in Edpuzzle, they're going to ask you for the answers to both of those problems. So take your time, get those right, put it in, and then your results will be sent back to me. All right, now that you've tried some on your own, let's do this 2 more times. So here, there's no greatest common factor, so I'm dealing with 1, negative 11, and negative 12. Nothing divides all three of those numbers. So A is 1, B is negative 11, and C is negative 12. So I put negative 12 on top and negative 11 on bottom. So here, I need to think of two numbers that will multiply to 12, but add to 11. So I have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. 1 and 12 with negatives, I could make negative 11. 2 and 6, there's no way it could add to negative 11. And 3 and 4, there's no way it could add to negative 11. So if I want to multiply to negative 12, but add to negative 11, I need a positive 1 and a negative 12. And then again here, these will not reduce because I can't divide anything out of 1 and 1, and I can't divide anything out of 1 and 12. So my final answer is just going to be x plus 1 and x minus 12. And again, it doesn't matter if you wrote it this way, this is totally fine as well. Not writing anything in front of the x is the same as having a 1 there. So either of those answers are okay. All right, last one we're going to do together. So again, I have 2x squared, 16x, and 30. This time I notice that 2 will divide out all three of those problems. So that's going to leave me with x squared, 8x, and 15. So I have my greatest common factor of 2, then x squared plus 8x plus 15. So again, a is 1, b is 8, c is 15. So a times c is at top, so that's 15, and b is on bottom, that is 8, and 1 on the two sides. So anything that multiplies to 15 is 1 and 15, and 3 and 5. That's really it. There's no possible way for 1 and 15 to add up to 8, but 3 and 5 can. So 3 times 5 is 15, and 3 plus 5 is 8. So again, on the sides, I know we haven't seen any that do reduce yet, but we will soon. Nothing reduces over here, so I just have x plus 3 and x plus 5. All right, for this last problem, there is a greatest common factor. And also notice that your first term is negative. So you want to take care of that through your greatest common factor. And I think this is a problem that will reduce. So I want you to work out this problem as much as you can. And then to get your homework, you just need to show me your problem. If you're stuck, we can work through it, fix it, and then you'll have the rest of the hour to work on your homework.